Welcome back, everybody. In this video, our focus is going to be lesson number 49. And in lesson number 49, we have a new note that is being introduced to us. It is on the first string, it is on the 5th fret, and it is called A. We are going to play this A with our 4th finger. You'll see a 4 beside it. I'm not sure I mentioned this, but it's in measure 5. And you're going to play that again with your 4th finger. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. Also in measure 5, we have a C sharp. Now, if you remember, the sharp signs apply to all of the notes for the duration of the measure. So for measure 5, the first C is obviously sharp. The second C is sharp, the third C is sharp, and the 4th C is also sharp. This also happens in measure 2 with your G sharp and in measure 3 with your G sharp. So watch for that. In measure 4, we are playing this chord right here, just like this. Okay, when you transition from measure 4 to measure 5, you're going to shift your left hand over to the second position. Now, if you don't remember what second position means, all it means is your hand, or your index finger, or your first finger, is going to shift over to the 2nd fret, and now your first finger is going to be in charge of all of the notes on the 2nd fret. Your second finger will be in charge of all of the notes on the 3rd fret, so on and so forth. So when you get to measure 4, at the end of measure 4, you're going to take your middle finger off, take your second finger off. You're going to shift your first finger over 1 fret, and that's going to be where your C sharp is. And then this shift will allow you to reach the A with your pinky. And now you are playing the notes in measure 5. Just like that. All right, I'm going to show you one more time. Here is the chord in measure 4. When you finish measure 4, you're going to lift your second finger. Your first finger is going to shift to the 2nd fret, and now you're playing the C sharp. And then your pinky reaches the 5th fret of the first string to play the A. Everything else, all of the other notes, should be fairly self-explanatory. You have in this lesson 3 voices. You have the bottom voice, which is all of your bass notes. So anytime you are switching strings, open strings, remember to mute the previous string with your thumb by playing either a rest stroke, in this case, or by returning to the string you played, so that you only hear the 6th, in this case, the 5th string. You only hear one bass note at a time. The top voice is playing nothing but quarter notes. In the first measure, you have a quarter rest, followed by E, 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 and all of those are being played with your ring finger. The middle voice, you start with an 8th rest, which is part of an 8th note triplet, a group of 8th note triplets. So that 8th rest is not technically just an 8th rest, it's an 8th rest triplet, I guess you could say. It's part of that triplet group. Followed by, after that rest, you have your A on the 3rd string and then your C on the 2nd string. You're going to want to make sure that the first string is louder than all of the other strings, because like I've mentioned in previous lessons, the top voice is the voice that we want to hear, that the listener is going to, their ears will be drawn to the higher voice. So we're going to make sure that we play that one louder. So it's really important that when you play your arpeggio, figure out what the arpeggio is. It's pretty simple. You don't want your index finger and your middle finger to be as loud or louder than your ring finger. And you can exaggerate, and I've mentioned this also before in previous videos, by playing everything extra soft, except for the note that you want to be loud. Whoops. Now, in a performance situation, that's a bit too much, but it's good to practice it this way so that you know what to listen for, and you can hear when something is, when what you're playing is not in balance, when things are out of balance. So practice it that way initially. Let's see, what else can I talk about? Well, you know what? I want to get into more musical interpretations and things like that. So once you've got a grasp on all of the notes and the arpeggios and the chords and all of the rules, the shift, take a moment to listen to the song, or the lesson, I should say. Listen to the lesson and see if you can find out where the more important chords are, or the chords that to you stick out the most. I'll let you pause the video here because I'm about to give you my answer as to where that is. Okay, so in measure 5, that is going to be a very important chord. And it's an important chord because you have a C sharp. And again, that C sharp is not a part of the scale we're in. And I know you may not be familiar with what I'm talking about when I say scales. But hopefully, as you've played through the lesson, just your ear, instinctively, you hear that chord and it just sounds like something is happening. And it's true, something is happening. Notes are being introduced to the lesson that do not belong in the key that you're in. Obviously, that's why you have that accidental there. And of course, you also have your note on the 5th fret of the 1st string. That right here, this note right here, is the highest note in the melody. So it's almost like it's building, right? So not only do you have your C sharp, which is a note that doesn't belong on the scale, your ears can be like, what is this? You also have that high note. So it's very, those two things combined make it very clear to the listener that something is happening. There's a journey that's taking place musically. The harmony is changing, it's developing. And that measure is going to be something that we want to emphasize and accentuate in our playing. So when you get to measure 5, all I want you to do is just play louder. But not only are you going to play louder on measure 5, you're going to build up to it on measure 5 by crescendoing on measure 4, by playing a crescendo on measure 4. And that'll give it a nice build up to measure 5. Okay? So here's measure 5 or measure 4 into measure 5. Okay, do you see that? Okay. That is going to be very, very effective in this lesson. Everything else for now, let's keep everything fairly simple, unless you feel you want to challenge yourself and apply some of the other things we've talked about in the past. You can play measure 5 Ponticello. Right? And notice right there, I did that naturally. Notice right there, when I finished measure 5, I slowed down a bit too much because I was kind of playing an example. But something that you do want to take away from what I just did is, as I finished measure 5, I did start to, not slow down, I did start to back off. I was playing a decrescendo. So I built up to measure 5. I played measure 5 pretty loud. I propped it up. And then as I was getting into measure 6, I started to back off. And so that chord, which is called a D minor, by the way, was very relaxing. It's resolved. It's a resolution is what it's technically called. Because you're playing an A7 and then into a D minor. That's a resolution. I'm not going to go over the theory behind it. We're just learning how to play the guitar right now. Perhaps I'll make some videos that talk about music theory and how it relates to the choices we make when we're playing, the choices we make in how we play the lessons or the pieces, so on and so forth. So that's something you can do. And then, of course, when you get to the end, you're going to do the same thing. Measure 7. You can finish it off. You're going to finish that off with a soft landing. Two things I did there. I did a rit, meaning I slowed down, and I played a decrescendo at the end. I just kind of faded away. And sometimes you'll see in the music words that say, instead of rit or instead of crescendo, you'll see words that are trying to describe what they want the player to to perform. They'll say muriendo, like dying, like as if you're dying. So that's just one example off the top of my head. But that is lesson 49. I'll play it once, and you can use it as reference. But I would like you at this point, because the lessons are getting longer, practice them. Make sure that they're as perfect as you can make them reasonably before moving on to the next one. Or just spend time and listen to what you're playing, because listening is a big part of playing the guitar and improving and making the right choices for the music, for the written music. Okay, so here is lesson 45 on my count. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will see all of you in lesson 50.